Hey everybody, this is Todd again with Todd and Judy's Travelers, and today I want to take a few minutes to talk about some excuses people use for why they don't go to Europe. And I'm talking specifically about Europe this time. Because I talk to a lot of people and you ask them, well, why don't you go? I mean, you describe what it's like and they all seem very excited about it, but then they don't go, and then you start asking, well, don't want to go. So here's some of the reasons they give, and just want to talk about those, maybe debunk a few, so you'll feel more comfortable if you want to go to Europe. And the first thing is it's too expensive, and that's really kind of surprising. You'll get a lot of answers, wild answers of what they think it actually costs to fly over in Europe and to stay in a hotel in Europe, and the food and so forth. And a lot of times they're just way off base. And so you kind of need to get the facts. Well, first of all, different European countries are different in the pricing. Some countries can be very expensive. Some can be normal compared to the United States. Some can be a lot less expensive. And in the videos down the road, we'll talk about those more in detail. But in general, it's no more expensive than America. And in a lot of places, it's a lot cheaper. Again, there are a few that are a little more expensive, especially up in the Scandinavian countries. But then there are still ways to reduce the expenses while you're there if you kind of know a little bit about those countries. So even if it's, I guess, just like you can go to New York City and spend a ton of money at a hotel down by Times Square, or you can find probably a better pricing somewhere else in New York City. So it's kind of the same way in Europe, even though obviously New York City is very expensive. And there's really not too many of those places in Europe. There's some, but for the most part, there isn't. So, well, one is expenses is the air cost. So it can really kind of go all over the board, and you can just randomly pick days to go and just take that as the price, or you can do some shopping. And here's a couple examples I found that can save you some money. So one of them is for some reason leaving on a Wednesday is always cheaper than leaving on any other day. So when I check for airline tickets, I'll check obviously Wednesday first, and I'll just double check other days of the week to make sure if that still holds the course, and it generally does. So Wednesdays. The other thing that we do is we fly into one place and fly out of another place. On the face of it, you might think, well, that's going to be more expensive, and we found that just to be the opposite, that it's not more expensive, that it's cheaper to fly into one location and out of another location. The other good benefit about that is that you're not backtracking. So if you want to explore as much as you can in Europe on one particular trip, and one thing I would advise against is don't try to do too much on your first trip. Don't try to see everything in the world and run yourself ragged. That doesn't accomplish much. This gets you tired, gets you cranky. I don't think you want to do that. So, for example, if you want to fly into Berlin and then leave out of Vienna, which is a reasonable distance, then you can see a whole bunch of new places without saying, well, we got to backtrack and then go back to the same place we've been, and so forth. So we kind of like it. We come in one place and out the other, and we find that to be actually cheaper. There's a lot of these no-frill airlines we really haven't, in the United States, going to Europe, we really haven't done much with. Once you get to Europe, it's different. So the prices and the other thing to watch out for is high season, low season. When is the high season for that country? And when is the low season? I mean, obviously, high season, the tickets go up, everything goes up some, low season goes down. What's good to know is kind of when exactly that happens, so that you can check your tickets if you're getting into, say, May, June timeframe, and you say you're going to go for a week or 10 days, you can do that and kind of stagger it, and you'll see when it goes up. So then you can say, hey, you may be in the weather might be just as warm this 1 week versus a week in the high season, but you save a lot of money. So we kind of check it when that occurs, find out when, according to the airlines, that's high season, and when there's low season, and right before then, especially kind of in the warm weather, that's kind of what we look for to save a few bucks. But here's something else. You just don't really know the kind of deals you get out there. I mean, point in fact, a few months ago, I was just kind of goofing off, checking on flights, and we fly American Airlines like some others. The reason we look kind of like American is that their frequent flyer program is, quite frankly, a lot better than some of the other ones. Get a lot cheaper points, a lot less points to go to actually be able to go to Europe. But we were just checking one time, and then it was a Saturday to a Saturday, and it was Munich, and we go out of the Orlando airport, and it was $390 round trip to Munich through Philadelphia on American Airlines. So it wasn't 3 or 4 stops, it was just one stop, and then into Munich, 2-hour layovers. Really good deal. $390 came out of nowhere, and we did it. And we're going to do it next month. So I just kind of give you an example. If you keep checking, there's prices all over the board. So I don't know if it's any, again, and if you fly in the United States, it could be the same way. You can have a flight 2 states away that could be, or even in the same state, could be super expensive, or you can find a cheaper one. So, it's not that bad. Normally, if I'd say a ballpark, normally what you're going to pay, kind of normal high season type-ish, you may be paying $1,100, $1,200, maybe $1,300, again, depending on what airport for a round trip ticket. And it just depends what airport you're going out of. So it's not outrageous by any stretch of the imagination. And to go with that, a lot of people, kind of sit there and say, well, I'll just wait till I retire, and then I'm going to do all my traveling. Well, we've traveled for, we've gone back into Europe for 30 or 40 times in the last 15 years, and I actually lived there for 3 years when I was in the military. And, one thing I always kind of remind people is, one, is when you retire, you may not have, the extra money that you have because you're working today. So if you spend a little more, it's not a big deal because, you have a job and a paycheck coming in and so forth. So, and the second thing I think is the health. I mean, I see a lot of people over there at older age, and if this is the first time over there, a lot of times it looks like, they're struggling to walk around because you're going to do a lot of walking. There's hills, there's castles, there's cobblestones, there's all that stuff. And so are you even going to be healthy enough really to enjoy it like you want to enjoy it? So, just assuming that you retire, one, that you're going to have all the money to do it, that I wish you will, that may be the case, but a lot of times that's not the case. And two, is your health going to hold up? Because you go over there, you get jet lag, you're on the move a lot, and are you healthy enough to do it? And I always find that if you're going over there years in advance, you kind of get to know where you would like to travel more later in more detail. So it's kind of like you don't know about Europe in one trip or 10 trips or even 100 trips. You just you learn more, and it all depends what you guys like to do. And by going back before like retirement and stuff, I think you start understanding what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and where you really like to concentrate more, where you don't. So, I understand how people think, well, when I retire, I'm just going to do it all. But even like we've been going back Judy and I have been going back to Europe for the last 15 years, at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And we still learn so much more, and there's so many more places to go, so many places to experience it. So even if you start doing it in retirement, I mean, there's so much to see and so much to do. So it's a long process, and it's a long, fun process. The other thing is focusing on terrorism. Well, there is terrorism. There's terrorism anywhere. You can always be at the wrong place, wrong time, and I don't think anybody can ever do about it. But we've been to places where terrorism occurred after we had been there, so we understand that. But really, it's very, very safe in Europe, and it's a lot safer than the United States. In fact, I feel a lot more comfortable walking down a big city street in Europe than I do in the United States. People are very friendly. Sure, there's crime, but you can look at the crime statistics are so much lower over there. And again, if you're just concerned about terrorism, I mean, that can happen anywhere. And it happens in the United States, it happens in South America, and it happens in Europe, it happens in Asia, it happens all over the place. I mean, you take that into account, but I mean, you can be any place, wrong place, wrong time, something can happen. but in general, it's been always very. I've always felt extremely safe, and we've never had anything like that, like normal crime, happen with us. We've never had that. And some people might think that there's an anti-American sentiment. I've never had that feeling. I mean, you may run across some people just are unfriendly, but they're just unfriendly people. But for the most part, I actually find that they like Americans. And I haven't really an experience where I felt like I was being discriminated because I was American. That hasn't happened. So don't worry about that. Actually, people really, for the most part, pretty friendly, and I think they like Americans. Another thing you may be bothered a little bit is you don't speak the language. Well, I don't speak language either. I mean, I know a few words here and there in certain different languages, and then you can kind of figure things out by signs. And now that you have Google Translate, it makes it a lot easier. But a lot of people speak English too. There's very, very few places where no one speaks any English. And you try, and they'll try, and they understand. They'll try to help you out, and you pick up a few words, so forth. A lot of restaurants you go into will have an English menu and a regular, like a German menu, what country you're in. So I wouldn't worry about that. And if you don't understand, just ask. Because most are real nice. And you'll kind of figure out, well, the signs, and then, highways, and, traffic signs, and just kind of the city center signs. You'll kind of figure all that out. And if you're going to go someplace, do a little research on the language. Try to pick up a few words that you're going to use, and you'll be fine. So don't let language scare you off. That's not an issue. So I don't want to make this video too long. So again, what we talked about was it's too expensive. I don't think that's the case. Is do your homework, and it's just like if you're going someplace in the United States, depending on small city, big city. The other thing about the difference between big city, small city, just like in Europe, you go a little bit away from the big city, a lot cheaper to get a place to stay and get a place to eat and so forth. So it's not too expensive, but you do your homework like everything else. Terrorism is I think it's overblown. Sure, it happens, but regular crime really hasn't been a factor for us at all. Anti-American sentiment, I haven't felt that. In fact, I felt the opposite, that people are actually pretty friendly. Don't speak the language. Don't worry about it. A lot of these places want tourism. It's money. They'll help you out. They'll have English menus, other English things there, so you'll be able to understand it. And you can ask them questions. And then a lot of times, just common sense. People say, "I'm going to wait till I retire." Well, that's fine too, but consider you don't necessarily may not have the excess money that you do now. So if you can spend a little more and you recover quickly, worry about your health. Can you really get around as much as you want to when you look older? Hopefully we're all healthy. We can do all that, but you never know. And learning Europe is a process. It's a fun process. So you're not going to get all of it in a 1 year period, 2 year period, 3 year period, 4 year period, 5 year period. So many times you can go there before your retirement. You kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like. And then when you retire, then maybe you can focus on more areas that you thought more well of in Europe. Well, I hope you got something out of that today. But that's just my 2 cents on things to think about when you say you don't want to go to Europe because of this, that, or whatever. So please take that in consideration. I hope it's very helpful for you. If you have any comments about this video or any questions you'd like to ask, please put them on the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.